Good morning. Today is Saturday, July the 30th. I've done YouTube video before, maybe a couple of them, on the negative volume index. But this time I want to show you about 20 different charts and their negative volume index to see if we have a correlation, if we can infer something from the movement of that study, that index, with price. And I'm going to start with Apple. And I'm going to run through most of these charts. Here you can see the price pattern of Apple over 1 year. Negative volume index always starts at 100. Even if you change the time frame and you want to look at the negative volume index over a 4-hour period, it's still going to start at 100, so that everything from then on becomes relative to the starting point on your chart. Remember, negative volume index is simply measuring the change in price multiplied by the previous day's index only on days when the trading volume is less than the prior day. So here's an example right here where this day the volume was less than the day before, and the price went up. So you would expect the negative volume index to tick up, and it ticked up a little bit. But anyways, look at Apple. For the longest time, Apple saw no uptick. Here we're going back to August of last year. Saw no uptick in the negative volume index right to about this point here. And then at this test of the 50, mind you, we had had one before, but this test of the 50, the negative volume index started to move up. So on down volume days, which is supposed to be when the smart money is secretly acquiring or accumulating, and the smart money, the dumb money, or the crowd money is not participating. The crowd money tends to participate more on high volume and high activity days. We see the negative volume index moving steadily higher to the point now where it's hit its top. It hasn't hit its top, but it's the top relative to where it started. It can continue to go up, but it's pretty much shown no sign of abating. Let's go to the next one. AGNC is a popular REIT. Look what happened yesterday on the scare with the deficit and possible raising of interest rates. But we still see this pattern where we're still with a negative volume index that's on the move up, 10% higher than it was a year ago. This is Amazon. Amazon is actually trading now below, with a negative volume index below where it started a year ago, and it hit a peak. Really, it hit its peak. Its peak was 100% pretty much, and it's been going down since. So what does that indicate? It simply indicates that smart money may not be buying may not be paying more for the stock on low volume days. It doesn't mean it's not being accumulated, but the evidence isn't there in the negative volume index. ARM Holdings, that's the pattern there. I really don't follow this stock. Somebody asked me to look at it. Baidu is steadily moving up. It's only recently hit a peak, and it's come off a little bit in correspondence with this all-time high after earnings. But on lower volume days, which would mean this day and this day after earnings, we have seen the price come down on negative volume days. We need to look at a longer pattern than just 2 days and see if there's a warning there for us in the negative volume index, if at lower volume days the smart money is not buying. Citibank. We've seen Citibank go through a series of cycles. Here's the 100%. This one is not starting at 100%, so let me back off. There we go. So there's the full year. Here we are at 100%, and we can see now that we're trading below 100%. Strength, the negative volume index shows strength in the stock when it's above its average for the year. So its average is right about where we are now. So it's not showing strength or weakness. CAT continues to show strength and has shown no decline. Even here on this low volume day and this low volume day, this one had a bit of a drop. But we need to see a trend, and we don't see any downward motion on low volume days. Sienna. we're starting to see some decrease. Now we saw a max here, but from this point on, corresponding to right here in the chart, we're starting to move down. And that was just prior to earnings. And then after earnings, with this gap, it's continued to drop a little bit, but it's still 40% over where it was a year ago, but it's below its peak of an index of 100, about 160. That's how you read this thing. Cummins International showing strength, dropping off a little bit like Caterpillar. And Tropic Communications, very interesting stock, and the reason I have this here is because it was a Fortune 500 pick at the beginning of the year for one of their 10 picks. Pretty lousy pick. You can see where it's hit this low several times and has now fallen through the low, but look what's happening to the index. Of course, it started at 100. Let me go back out here. It started at 100, and it's still moving up. Here was its high of all time right there, and it's still at its high. So on low volume days, and there have certainly been many of them, there doesn't seem to be any unloading of the stock. On negative volume days, on high volume days, you could see some unloading, but the positive volume index is not supposed to be as indicative as the negative volume index. EVEP, steadily uptrend. We have to move through these a little quicker now. Expedia, this is not a great negative volume index indicator here, and yet we've seen quite a rise from this point here. No, I guess we'd have to say that the move up started right about here. And here is where the negative volume index started to pick up again. From 93, it moved up to a high of 102, and now it's dropped down a little bit more. Freeport-McMoRan, steady, strong negative volume index, accumulation on low volume days. FFIV, I've got a couple of areas highlighted here where the stock took a major serious drop, but the slope of the regression line in the negative volume index didn't show the same bearish slope to it. And then when we returned to move up, we still saw the negative volume index as a regression line moving down, and just about at the same rate as the previous one. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there could be some exhaustion here in FFIV or interest in buying it on the sly, quietly on low volume days. Joy G, now we really have to move forward through them. JP Morgan, Mosaic. I love Mosaic, and I've been long for it for a long time, and I'm in the red holding it on a swing trade, but the reason that I'm in the red, the reason I'm still holding it is because the negative volume index doesn't drop on low volume days, and again, there have been many of them. Here's one, two, well, there's several right in here, lower than the previous day, and there's no selling. There's no lower price, I'm sorry. Now, Netflix is a conundrum because we saw this stock going up, but we never saw its negative volume index do anything spectacular except right here. And then from this point on, although the price was steadily going up, it wasn't going up on the low volume days, and it continues to be very near its 100% line at the beginning of the year. We see it going down now. Some people have called it a sell for a long time. It would sure look like, if you follow the negative volume index, that Netflix is not a good entry for a swing trade. Potash, sort of flattening out. RIM. Now, RIM's a perfect example. Look back here at 100% and how long it just maintained its 100% line to about here. This is where you start to see so-called smart money selling on low volume days, and it's been a steady move down. So the negative volume index here of RIM corresponds with what we saw for Apple. Strong stock, strong NVI. RIM, weak stock, certainly a weak NVI. Royal Bank of Canada. CINA. CINA has become, to me at least, a day trading darling, and anybody who holds it for a swing sees gyrations. We saw it move up to a modest high here of 110, and now it's down and it's flat. Sohu, down. The SPY we can't do it with. Sorry, the SPX, there's no volume. Tech Kaminko, I've always liked. I've had a great time with it since it went down to $3 and then up to 27 and then 60. Here's some timelines showing you low volume days. This day was lower than the previous day. This one was lower yet, and this one was lower again. And then we saw on these low volume days, right after this move up here, this lower low. In fact, if we put in a trend line here, we probably have a pretty decent trend line going here. Come on, come on. Maybe not that one. Let's try here. Let's try this trend line. Yeah, we sort of got a trend line here, but when we hit 1, 2, 3 lower lows, we started seeing the negative volume index dropping off. So I would look for a turn up of the negative volume index before I got long some more TCK. XLF, look at the strength in the XLF. Started at 100%, of course, drifted up slowly, went for a long quiet period, and then right here on June the 7th, corresponding to this zone right here, we hit this low. And then the negative volume index has been moving up. This is why people are calling for possibly the financials leading the rally at the end of the year. Akamai, we all know what happened to Akamai in the recent earnings. Same thing that happened to them the last earnings and the earnings before that. Started at 100%. Let's make sure we have the year. Started at 100%, hit its high right about here, and then has been on a steady down move ever since. There's been no accumulation of Akamai on low volume days. The warning was there that the smart money was not buying it. Juniper, we saw a major shock happen to it this week, and I've highlighted some low volume days where you saw right from here, about 2 weeks before earnings, the negative volume index starting to drop. These people may have had an intuition that Juniper's earnings would not be so great, and smart money, who trades on low volume days, was not showing any enthusiasm for the stock. So that's that. I hope that was some help. Infer what you want from the negative volume index. I think that it's something that you should have on your charts. I don't say that it works on 1 minute, 5 minute, 10-minute charts because I think it's really a swing trader's tool. So I like it on the 4-hour, on the daily, and on the weekly charts.